Hey friends, Irene Lyon here. Welcome to this video, to this channel, and to this world of healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. Today I want to share a video clip that I did on my Instagram channel where I was answering a question in the comments around a slight confusion that someone had around the polyvagal theory and the thought that digestive troubles and such were a result of fight-flight due to the adrenaline and cortisol. And this is a common confusion because we have to add in the next F of the equation, which is the freeze response. So in this video response that I did on Instagram, I answer in depth what's going on when our system goes into survival mode and how this spectrum of fight, flight, and freeze can contribute to digestive upset. So have a listen. Hey there, everybody. It's Irene here. It is, I'm forgetting what day it is. It's Thursday in the afternoon, and I've just got a moment before my final meeting of the day. And I am making a point to do more of these quick videos. I'm trying to keep them to 5 minutes, but I don't always keep my promise. So what I wanted to do today, and I've done this in the past, I want to answer a question that I just saw on Instagram here, and it was related to my last post on the polyvagal theory video that I did well over, gosh, I think it was 2 years ago now. And it's called the polyvagal theory explained. And I really break down the branches of the vagus nerve, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. And I'm going to do a live stream on polyvagal, all things polyvagal, in February this month as part of my special topic lecture. So if you're new here, once a month I do a special topic lecture free of charge usually it's on my Facebook page, but we're thinking about moving these to YouTube. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, they record and I share on both sides, and I share it via email and in various clips here. So the question was very well explained. So they watched the video. So great. So start with watching the video. And they write, I think the name is Christian. So Christian, thank you for your question. You say in the video that shutdown, I'm reading from my screen, shutdown nowadays is more common than fight, flight, and how this is related to digestive problems. So he's asking, I say in the video that the shutdown response, the freeze response, is just, to me, it's more rampant, it's more common in our society of industrialization, and of course the last year is no exception. I mean, we've all had to kind of go into some weird form of shutdown with the world. The world has been shut down, so it's kind of it's kind of strange, isn't it? Kind of a weird meta of the individual. So back to the question. He said, you say that shutdown is more common nowadays, more than fight flight. So how is this related to digestive problems? I always thought digestive problems like IBS, ulcers, and so on were actually more related to fight flight because of the cortisol and adrenaline. Am I missing something? So no, Christian, you're not missing something. But what happens is, and this is where I don't love these 5-minute videos or 10-minute videos. I will be very honest, because it's impossible to give you the full story of how being in a chronic state of stress over many years, and maybe from early dysregulation in our life, creates something like irritable bowel, ulcers, colitis, just the gut being basically screwed, for lack of a better word, and then not able to give us the nutrition we need, causing discomfort. And in some people's cases, they have to take their whole colon out. But if we think of the chronic stress response and the system living in this constant state of fight, flight, and freeze, before the freeze comes the fight and the flight. I'm going to say that one more time. Before the freeze comes the fight and the flight. So if we think of someone who grew up in a very intense, stressful environment, doesn't even have to be abuse, but just intense and stressful, And so their system wants to flee, it wants to fight, it might want to smack their parents in the face because they're fighting all the time, or they're drinking all the time, or they're not listening to them, or they're not allowing them to be who they are. That little one, because they're probably not going to run away from home. I mean, some kids do try, but they don't get very far, right? They might get to the neighbors or to their grandmas down the street, but they can't really fight and flee. And so what do? They shut down. They go into a freeze. But that fight flight doesn't go away. So this comes to your question, Christian. The fight flight is trapped inside the system, and that freeze is basically putting a massive brake. It's like it's suffocating the fight and flight from being able to fully mobilize and activate and slay and slash and run away and all that sort of stuff. So with this high level of parasympathetic shutdown, that's the dorsal branch, the dorsal tone, high dorsal tone of the parasympathetic. Again, I'm not going to go into all the branches because you can go watch the polyvagal video explained. But high tone dorsal of the parasympathetic, which is the vagus nerve, is in this shutdown state. But then, so it's like revving high, but it's shutting you down. It's kind of this weird, twisted way of looking at it. But it's high. So high dorsal tone shutdown means deep freeze. But under that is the fight and the flight running a mile a minute, but it's not running a mile a minute, it's being suppressed. So imagine taking a volcano and trying to keep it suppressed inside the earth. It's going to not be good, right? The pressure is there, but it's being contained by this shutdown response. It's like trying to not allow tears to come out. If you've ever held back tears, you get really, really burny in the throat. It hurts. It strains your system. It puts your system into stress when you hold that emotion in. So currently, there's kind of this, and I'm generalizing, more people, I think, living in Western industrialized society are living in this kind of shut-downy, freezy state. But under that is the fight flight. So the cortisol, you ask, and the adrenaline, they're part of the picture, but it's actually the cortisol that's more critical, but it depends where the person is on the spectrum. So when we realize when we're really young, this video is definitely going to be more than 5 minutes long. When we realize when we're young that we can't fight and we can't escape and we have to go into shutdown, the biology also recognizes, hey, this adrenaline isn't serving me anymore because I'm constantly having to pump up the chemicals that want to fight and flee, but I can't get away, but my system's reacting. And adrenaline is a fast-acting hormone. It goes away, it gets sucked back into the blood, and then we pee it out really fast. So the physiology, this isn't just the brain, the entire physiology is very smart. It says, hey, we're going to pump out cortisol because cortisol is long-acting. It lasts for a long time. It's a steroid. And so it gets excreted in that moment, but if there's continual threat, if that person, that child keeps living in that family system, they're just going to keep secreting the cortisol, and that becomes toxic to the cells. It becomes toxic to the brain. And then over time, we then stop producing cortisol. This is why someone with, say, an autoimmune condition, we need to give them, well, we don't have to, but the common medical practice is to give them a dose of corticosteroids, prednisone, for example, to calm the system down, because we're trying to take inflammation away, because the system no longer has a natural anti-inflammatory effect because it's so worn out, because the fight flight is going inside and the freeze is on top, and basically it's like a car engine that's revving really high and you're trying to drive it, but you have the e-brake on, right? If you've ever tried to drive an automatic, this wouldn't work in a stick shift, but you're in your car that's an automatic and you don't realize that your e-brake is on and you try to go, it's not going to work. There's going to be like you feel it in the engine. So what happens, based on this question about how digestive problems happen when someone is in fight, flight, and freeze, is that over time, the system never knows rest digest. So this is where often this gets missed when people talk about the vagus nerve and the polyvagal theory and the nervous system. They don't break it down enough. The parasympathetic system is also responsible for rest digest. It's also responsible for shutting us down and keeping us safe. But if we're not living more of our time in rest digest, which is low tone dorsal of the parasympathetic of the vagus nerve, it's called low tone dorsal of the vagus nerve. If we don't go into that rest digest state when we're sleeping at night or when we're chilling out watching a show, if we're doing a very gentle meditation or yoga practice or something where we're just really slow, if we don't go into that rest digest, the immune system doesn't enhance, the repair and regeneration functions of the body don't work. They don't happen the same way. It's like the troops that repair don't get called in because they need to get called in when the system signals we're in rest, digest, low tone dorsal. The system is revving in fight, flight with that dorsal shutdown, that high tone dorsal on top of it. Those troops are going to come in and they're going to say, you can't come in because we're in charge. We're commanding this system and you don't get to come in and repair it ever. And this is why chronic illnesses usually take a little longer to set in. However, if a person's system is really strained, if there's all sorts of environmental toxins and the diet isn't good and there's no fresh air and no movement and all the things, then we actually can end up with a chronic problem a lot sooner, right? This is how autoimmune diseases set in. So to wrap it up, this rest digest, part of that is repairing the immune system, enhancing the cells so that they are healthy. And one of those parts of rest digest is called barrier keeping of the gut. Barrier keeping of the gut. If you think of the gut, or if you know the gut, if you've ever seen real sausage, you know that the lining of the gut is very thin. It's very easily broken. And so when we go to sleep at night, we want to go into this low tone dorsal to repair, because that repairing is stitching up the lining of the gut. It's keeping the barrier tight. It's keeping it solid. And that solidity and that strength is important so that we don't have these bowel problems and leaky gut problems. If it's not solid, we're not going to absorb the nutrition that we're eating. This is why so many people who have these troubles with their guts, they cut out all the food and they're like, I've cleaned up everything and yet I'm still having trouble. And that usually is a sign that there is this autonomic dysregulation occurring within the physiology. It isn't in the brain, it's not just in one spot, it's in the entire system. And usually when we have really deep gut problems, we also will ask a person, they will have trouble with anxiety, they will have trouble with sleeping, they will have trouble with their immune system, they might be extremely afraid of certain things. It's all indicative of this survival stress that is basically running the show within the system. So fight, flight comes first, in a sense. When the system realizes I can't fight and I can't flee, it shuts down, but that fight, flight doesn't go away. It's still in the system. And that's why when we start to heal at this level, when we've been fine most of our lives and we start to wake up the system, a person will often go through a period of feeling what we would call anxiety, which is survival stress. They'll start feeling a heart rate that they're not used to. And that's because the systems break, the dorsal shutdown, the high tone dorsal of the parasympathetic is starting to lift. And that fight flight, that Tasmanian devil that's been living in all of our cells, it starts to come up and then we start to feel a bit more chaotic. And then that's when we think we must be doing something wrong because we should be more calm because we're working on our nervous system. And shouldn't that mean that we just always feel calm? And that's not the case. We get to that point when we get the regulation on board. But at the outset, we sometimes feel these intensities that aren't what we're used to. And then we think we're doing something wrong. So Christian, great question. It all comes down to this fact that this stuff is more complex than what we can share in a fun Instagram tile quote thing or a video like this, even if we were to talk for 30 minutes, there would always be another piece to this puzzle. Hope you guys are seeing that. So that's why when I create my videos, I often have extra resources attached to it. That's why I run my programs online where we get deeper into these elements. Someone said, how long does that last? I think you might mean the anxiety. It depends. It depends. I have experienced the most level of not dysregulation, but we would call fight flight in my system over the past year, because my system's capacity has grown so much that all of the old in utero transgenerational traumas are coming up and out. The things that were so scary and I didn't know about are being felt, and it's uncomfortable. But when we have the knowledge on board and we know that everything else is healthy, you know, my system is healthy, but there's this fight flight devil that is like wanting to be felt. And that's where we have to understand what's going on. That's why I'm so diligent at educating my students. So yes, feeling some anxiety is definitely often a sign that we're going in the right direction. This is why we have to go slow. We have to build capacity. We have to know what our resources are. It's so important. So wanted to just answer that question. So Christian, I hope you see this. I'll be sure to tag you. Thanks everyone for being in here and listening. Like I said, I'm going to try to pop on here and do these videos based on questions I see, based on things that I'm hearing. I have a new video coming out on Monday that was based on a YouTube comment that I saw that I thought was so important that I share with you all. So thanks for being here. Thank you for your hearts and likes, and we will see you next time. All right, thanks for watching that. And if you want to dig deeper into the polyvagal theory and watch the video that the person had that question spark up from, I will post that below. It's called the Polyvagal Theory Explained. And if you want to learn more with me and get into this world of healing trauma at this nervous system level and working at this polyvagal level, please know, again, if you're watching this when this video is fresh in late February, early March of 2021, my 2021 run of my Smart Body, Smart Mind online nervous system rewire program. This is a 12-week program. It is starting very soon. We start officially on March 8th. Registration closes on March 7th. So if you don't know anything about this and you're interested in working with me and working at these deeper levels that I've just been talking about, be sure to check that out. I'm going to end this video with a video reel, a little promotional reel of this work, me talking about what it is, why I created this program. So have a watch and leave me any comments or questions around this video and the program that I just mentioned. Take care, and we will see you next time. So you have all this potential. Why is it so hard to step into? You've been living in survival mode, these fight, flight, and freeze responses. It's no fun, zaps your energy, and it can lead to things like anxiety, depression, insomnia, burnout, poor digestion, and a weakened immune system, and eventually to chronic health conditions. Living in survival mode hurts us, our communities, our planet. This stuff doesn't heal with time or on its own, but you can change it. This is why I created Smart Body, Smart Mind, an online program that teaches you to work at the root cause, your nervous system. So you can finally heal, realize your potential, and a whole lot